Angel's Egg is undeniably one of the most evocative pieces of art I've ever experienced. I've watched it so many times, and regardless of how many times I do seem to view it, it never becomes a clearer picture, rather a larger view of a distorted landscape. And people often wonder what they're meant to take from Angel's Egg, as if there's a drawn-out path to navigate the film, which is really the opposite of how the movie wants you to interact with it. Questions are not presented alongside answers, and ideas are not presented alongside conclusions. You have to approach Angel's Egg as if the paint has yet to dry. It's a film about reality, and how the idea of reality affects us. It's a film that is thematically driven by religion, as Oshii has mentioned in a number of interviews. Religion is such a strong anchor for the film about reality, as one of religion's most important jobs is to distort reality. And throughout the film, you must question the reality of the events that are happening, and this is what creates the narrative of Angel's Egg. But before trying to understand the metaphorical narrative, establishing what Angel's Egg is literally about is an important step towards understanding the various layers. As a film about questioning reality, you must first establish that reality. And despite its reputation, Angel's Egg's literal narrative isn't that hard to understand. A girl goes on a journey to deliver an egg. On the way, she meets a man who informs her that the egg, or the thing inside the egg, is responsible for the dystopian outcome of the world. Delivering the egg would have a repeat effect. We discover that the world is stuck in a sort of conflict between inhabitants and the egg, but this conflict is between mere shadows of the past, a kind of repetitive cycle based on old forgotten ideas. The religious symbolism is stark. Of course, everything in the narrative is metaphorical. It ties into various thematic ideas explored throughout the film. The literal happenings do not define Angel's Egg. Every element of the story is presented as a subjective event, constantly nodding its head towards thematic exploration. Throughout the movie, this idea of conflicting beliefs is solidified as one of the movie's main themes. The world is pictured as one of repetition, quite boldly and more literally outlined by the imagery of the town, populated by stone men and sculpted animals. For example, this scene of the fountain where fish are pictured in majestic poses but frozen in time. Also, these men, full of purpose, chase around shadows of fish, presumably representing old beliefs and conflicts. Everything here is busy yet non-progressive. The town isn't the reality that once was, but a visual representation of it. Such is the same for the rest of the movie. Angel's Egg's denial of anything literal is discussed towards the end of the film. Our two characters share a rare piece of dialogue in which they question the reality of their world. This conversation is very interesting and rather odd in a movie with very minimal dialogue. The man discusses the story of Noah. In the story, he sends a dove from his ark to find land after the 40 days of rain, but it never returns, and they wait so long that the people forget both about the dove and the land that previously existed. He then ponders whether any of it really existed at all, which is followed by the two characters finding the remains of that bird, all while it rains inside, referencing the conversation. The bird is a confirmation of the world's reality, but the indoor rain says the opposite. Again, a really interesting conflict. The story and the dialogue are not the only dances with reality. The film's aesthetic is well known for its surreal look. In fact, everything about it follows this style. There are elements of classic animation, but the majority of the scenes are drawn in an almost sketch-like style, consisting of rough pen strokes and wild designs. This technique is used beautifully in the portrayal of trees and water. The distorted view of the world this gives is very powerful. Having confidence in your understanding of Angel's Egg is one thing, but putting meaning to that understanding is another. As I mentioned, the film's literal narrative is fairly easy to understand, but it alludes to so many additional strands of storytelling. For me, the biggest question during the film is what's in the egg. I think the egg contains our reality, and the conflict becomes us deciding whether to reject it or embrace it. In the film, reality is rejected in favour of stability, and this brings up an incredibly complex set of questions. Is a manufactured reality like the one in the film greater than the true reality? Would you destroy the egg or embrace it? And there are a number of ideas you can take from this, the obvious one being religion. This is the most literal one throughout the movie. Evolution, or the rejection of evolution, is discussed and visualized. We have constant shots of fossils in the temple, seemingly waiting to return. And in the world, it seems that time has been frozen along with nature, mirroring the efforts of religion. The film raises the question of whether, again, this is the right decision or not. This idea can be applied to a number of different topics, but the film never concludes. It never says if either side is right or wrong. In fact, it almost alludes to the idea of both sides being wrong. I got the sense that the movie's ending stands on neither side. Regardless of our actions to embrace or reject the egg is a force far greater than us, and one that can't really be controlled, which is essentially reality. All these complicated webs of thought are born from the use of reality in the film. Merging the surreal and the literal creates a whirlpool of emotion. And it's all these interesting questions and dilemmas that the film brings forth that make Angel's Egg such an interesting experience, I think, and one that is very interesting to talk about. But it's very hard to talk about in a basic sense, so I do apologise if this video was at times a bit too surreal. It's very hard to talk literally about something that is so surreal. But a video on Angel's Egg is something I've wanted to create for a while, and I'm really glad I got the opportunity to do it here. And without a doubt, I'd love to make more videos, maybe talking about the various symbolic elements of the film. Without a doubt, one of my favourite Mamoru Oshii films, in fact one of my favourite films in general, and it's one that will continue to hold my attention for many watches to come.